Hey YouTube, Sam here. Well, I got the Astro van back up on blocks here, and amongst several other things like fixing a tire that got a hole in it and doing the rear brakes, I'm also doing the front brakes here. So look for a rear brake, a front brake, and a tire fix on this Astro van here. Go check out my channel and you'll see those videos at some point in time. First of all, we're going to do the front brakes. There's disc brakes on the front. The rear brakes on here is drum brakes. This is an all-wheel drive Astro van, so if you only have a two-wheel drive, it may differ, but it'll probably be similar, if not the same. So let's get to it. As well as down here, we have a 3/8 inch Allen wrench, and on the other side of that, I got a 5/8 regular wrench, just to give me a little bit more oomph. There we go. As I bump your camera. Now we loosen that up, and there's one right here as well. Hopefully you can still see that. And I'm going to go ahead and put the wrench on the other end of this as well. Hopefully not bump you too much. There we go. So we're going to take those all the way out, and we will move on to the next step. So we'll get these out, and I'll come. And I got these pins out. That should just fairly easy come off. You want to be careful if you choose to do anything I do. I'm not responsible if you break it. If you don't like the way I'm doing it, don't do it. We'll just put that in here right now. So I am using a pry bar just to kind of pry against there, not reefing on anything. And that should just come off. And then this one, from previous experience of working on my last one, these will set up here really nice if you just kind of fold them backwards. Now obviously don't knock it off or you end up breaking. Should just come off now. And mine needs turned. It's the last person that did this. There's some definite grooves in here and just changed the brakes. I'm not saying you can't get away with that. I've done it before when I didn't have money and didn't have time, and I thought about it this time, but I figure I might as well. I got everything up in there, I'm doing it. I'm just going to go ahead and see if I can have these turned. Take these brake pads off here, and I'm just using a screwdriver and kind of prying at it. This side's coming out okay. I'm having trouble getting in the bottom part of it out though. Huh. It is out. I just got it jammed down. There's two little legs down here and it's kind of stuck in there. Not wanting to come out. There we go. Those little things right there were stuck down inside here. But boy almighty, these needed done something fierce. Look how, I mean, you can barely see anything on there. Holy moly. I'm surprised there wasn't a whole bunch of noise. Honestly, these things weren't making hardly any noise at all. Only reason why I'm even changing these now is because I was rotating the tires and fixing a hole in another tire. So I thought, I should check them. And that just goes to show, if you got your wheels and tires and stuff off anyway, check all this stuff, because I had no idea how bad these were. Wow. This one's not as bad, so that shows also that it's not riding real straight on this, and it could also be the fact that these rotors are chewed up, and so the inside one here was rubbing harder and using up more pad than the outside one here. So keep an eye on that stuff. You can get away with it, like I said, but it will eat up your brake pads much faster. Now with these ones, it's got these two ears here, and they're kind of springy, and they will grab your fingers like there's no tomorrow if you're not careful. So I tend to, on these ones, just kind of try and bend them out of the way, pry on them a little bit, because I don't care if they come off. So anyhow, now we got the pads off. I'm going to blow this out, clean it up really good, take a look at it. I mean, it doesn't look horrible, just needs some serious cleaning. yeah, there's some definite crap on there, but right now I can't afford to rebuild everything, so I will also show you with these pins. They should go in and out of here easier too. I'll go ahead and pop those out, grease them up some before we go on. Well, YouTube, I took these out of the side. This is the side I filmed on, and as you can see, these go in and out of here all nice and dandy. But the other side I was having trouble with, and I got to looking, and there's actually a divot. I don't know if you can see that. There's a divot right in here, and that's why these were stuck in there. So therefore, I bunged up the threads a little bit. So what I'm going to have to do is try and get this back in. I'm going to try and go right down the same spot, get this back in here, and see if I can make it stick out. I'm hoping it'll stick out enough that I can get a tap and die on there and thread this in. We'll see. I'll have to see. I might wind up buying a new set of these. So don't beat this out. Like I said, I was wrong, because obviously one side, there's no divot. This is probably an aftermarket set of bushings here, and this was probably original, I'm assuming, probably, because these were older and a little bit more rusty and nasty, so I'm thinking these were probably original. So I'm going to have to try and get those in there. I'm going to have to try and clean them up, get them greased up, hopefully get it back in. And basically, to clean those up, I just use my wire wheel on the end of it again here. So I hose this down with some brake clean, got a bucket under there to catch everything. I'm going to go ahead and take a toothbrush to mainly like the surfaces down here where it touches down here. Get all that stuff real good and clean. Going to clean around here real good. Just want to clean it up best you can. Doesn't have to be surgical, but I don't want the grit and grime getting involved with the new pads or going back up in here when you're cleaning. Time to compress this in here, and there's a lot of different theories on how to do this, and probably the best way would be to actually open up your bleeder and let the brake fluid bleed out. But quite honestly, I'm just going to push this piston back in. I probably should show you that to you. I just got one of the old brake shoes, got it turned around backwards. I'm just kind of using it to give it a place to push, and then I got this brake tool. And quite honestly, you don't need this. I got a bunch of free brake tools and a box of stuff from a garage sale, so I have this, and actually this is the first time I've used this. So that just kind of goes in between here, and put that there, and then that pushes on it. Now you could use very easily what I always used in the past. C-clamp for this. Put one part of the C-clamp on this side, one part of the C-clamp on this side, and it basically does the same thing. You just clamp it in, and I'll get this on here, make sure it's not totally hitting on the bottom there, and it just pushes on it. Now you want to do this especially if you're not open up your bleeder screw and you're not gonna bleed these brakes. You want to just go real slow so that this can kind of go all the way up and back into the reservoir. Admittedly, this probably isn't the best way to do it, but I've always done it. I've never had a problem, and the brakes are working perfectly fine as far as pressure and things like that, so I'm not worried about any air being in this system. And I figure the more you crack things open, the more chance there is to get air in the system, and then you end up having to rebleed everything, and I just don't have the time to do that right now. If you got the time, it's probably the best way to do it would be to bleed your brakes after you're all done. This is where I say, if you do anything I do and you lose your brakes or something like that, I'm not responsible. If you don't like the way I'm doing it, don't do it. These ones, they kind of stick down in this area down between here, which is pretty tight. There we go. And then there's a spring that just kind of holds it up in here. It just kind of sits in there like that. Now these are the finger pinchers here, and they have a couple little balls on the spring here, and there's a couple holes down in here, and these little balls right here just stick right into those, and they can be kind of a bear sometimes. Now, I'm trying not to touch the brakes too much with my bare hands. I probably should have some gloves on, but you don't want the grease from your hands getting on the brakes too much if you can help it. I'll hit them with some brake clean before we throw it on. But next is to clean up the rotor. I'm going to clean this up pretty good again here. Just throw some brake clean on here, and I think it's a stainless steel, I don't know, I'd use a brass or some sort of brush here, and just gonna clean this off. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've cleaned these off in the past, just kind of making sure that they were fairly flat. I'm gonna really take a brush to them. But it does make sense that if these aren't flat, you know, your rotor is gonna be off kilter. Now, this whole part here, I took it from Chris Fix. Go check out his channel. He's got some of the really entertaining, really knowledgeable videos on automotive repair. If you're looking for something, and he has all kinds of vehicles, all kinds of repairs, all kinds of tests, and I would definitely go check him out. And this is something I got off of him. Right here, where the rotor tends to get stuck on here sometimes, take and put some anti-seize in between here on this, and that'll just kind of help it keep from corroding in between there. It's a super good idea, and I never thought of that before, so go check his channel out. I'm going to go ahead and brake rotor here. I did have these turned. I went to mine were actually too far gone to be able to be turned, so I went to my local wrecking yard and actually had them turn them for me. So and I got a used pair from the wrecking yard and had them turn them. I got it in a bucket here. Just gonna spray the brake clean all over it. You want to clean these up real good before you put them on, and even after you put this on. And I'm gonna take, and a lot of people do this and know about it, but in case you don't, put one of these on here. That'll just kind of hold the bottom of it in so it doesn't move around on you. And then I got some of this from the store here. It's just brake grease. On here, like I said, I got this brake grease here. I put a little bit on here. This is where the caliper bracket here kind of rides on, and a little bit up under here. Two things, this will help kind of let it move a little smoother, and it'll also help it keep it from corroding. And I'm going to go ahead and actually on the edge of the brake drum here where it rides again, I'll go ahead and put a little bit more on there. Don't need a whole lot. Carefully take this, and as you can see, I cleaned it with some brake fluid here, and just kind of over here. Hopefully I pulled this out enough here. And just pull out a little bit. Sometimes this can be a little difficult. There we go. There we go. Time to put the pins in now. And I got that same brake grease here. I'm about out of this one. I bought 2 packages, but I've been able to get so far done in one, but we'll see. This will last a little bit. And here's the pin here. Oh, it got smudge on it. Clean that off. And I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on here. And just kind of rub it in here good. It rides on this outer pin, but I'll put a little bit on the inner pin here too. And that just goes right back in here. And we'll get it, find the hole until we and get it to go in here. And when it comes to tightening stuff, it's up to you to figure out what you want to tighten it to and what your specs say on yours. But I noticed on the other side when I did this that there was a cap on here, and it wasn't on this side. So I went and grabbed a brake component kit. It was less than 10 bucks. I think it was like $6 or $8, and I grabbed this. It came with a whole bunch of other stuff, but I'm going to replace these on here. It's just kind of a dust boot, but keep water and dust out. Less chance of corroding. And because you need an Allen wrench for this one, although this works perfectly fine, this is a lot quicker. So this is one of those tools that you don't need, but it does make life a little bit nicer. It's already almost done. And I already put the bottom one in because you can't really see that anyway, so finish tightening it up. I'm going to put this little boot on here, and they're pretty snug. I actually had to take a little bit of a screwdriver and kind of push on it here, but anyhow, that's the front disc brakes on an Astro van, all-wheel drive here. Now while it's up, I've got a few other things I've been doing to it. I did the rear brakes on it. I'm going to do a fuel filter on it, also change the oil, so go check out some videos on those. Rotating the tires as well. I got a kind of a short, not really video on how to do it, but why. And I'm greasing the front end as well, which I'm not really going to do a video on. That's a matter of just finding the Zerk fittings and putting some oil in. That's even way too boring of a video for me. Alright, well, this is Sam, Jack of all, master of none. You all have a good one.